Hello and welcome to the impzonepod TNA fan. We're back to talk more TNA wrestling shenanigans. And, the Hardies won the NXT tag titles. One of the things that I didn't think was gonna happen at all, but what have you. I don't want to dive too deep into the decision making or what have you of the NXT brand and whatnot. I've said it before with their ADHD booking and whatnot and all of that sort of stuff, but we have now found out that the NXT titles will be on the line in the match between the Hardies and Team 3D. I don't really think this changes the outcome because, guys, it's Team 3D's last match. Literally, I think. So, come on. Unless they're, retiring retiring with the belts type thing, and they're gonna vacate the belts. There's no way that they are doing that. And there would be, very little reason for WWE to be like, oh, you guys are going to lose to Team 3D, a team that hasn't wrestled in, a few years or whatever it was when they last wrestled in TNA 1000. And that was, they barely wrestled then. Really barely wrestled then. But, again, you're going to say, oh, yeah, we're going to put these titles on you. And even though we have ADHD booking, come on, guys. It's only 3 or 4 days after that they were going to, defend the titles and potentially lose the titles. So you'd have to know that. And you'd have to know, hey, why are we putting them on these guys and these other guys are going to win them and then they're going to retire with them? I mean, maybe you could make an argument for it, but, why? Again... really? You're just gonna have them be vacated? I would think much more so that you would think be like, oh yeah, they're not gonna lose these belts at Bound for Glory, and hey, they're gonna be in WWE soon, so hey, let's give them these belts, and hey, let's, work some things around and figure out a way to get these belts off these guys from one of our, tag teams in WWE or in NXT, because that's a big thing for somebody to come along, a new team, and say, hey, we beat the Hardies for those belts, the legendary Hardies, whatever. So again, I can see that. And again, that's been the thought, or I hope that's been the thought in TNA as well. But it really seemingly hasn't been, because they're seemingly really have been more focused on just WWE guys or what have you. And I get that that's, WWE's paying them and or whatever. They're saying, hey, we'll help you out. We'll, blah, blah, blah. We'll promote your pay-per-views and, promote some of your wrestlers and promote some of your storylines and things like that. And yada, 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 all this sort of stuff. So, and again, it does help in some ways by saying, hey, you guys are 1 or 2 men short or whatever else it is. When there is a division that needs extra hands, like the X division, or whatnot, that does help. Or the world title scene, especially when you've got a whole bunch of baby faces and you haven't got very many heels. Okay, cool. You're going to lend us some heels. That's what we need. And it's a natural kind of angle to be like, hey, these guys are heels because they're invading our company. But, yeah, whatever. What have you. Again, that's my thought. It's clear to me that the obvious or semi-obvious thing is that at some point, they're and maybe you start getting that perspective of, again, now they're not TNA hires, now that, the TNA, even though, maybe that's what they'll do. They'll transition and still have the titles. Because I was like, dude, how are they going to get these belts off of them before their contracts run up or before they decide, you know what, we're leaping to WWE so that we can have that last run in WWE? That the NXT titles do set them up to have a really good last run in WWE, But it also sets them up, like, if they don't lose those TNA titles, to be like, hey, who's going to beat them for their titles? So that's not as, like, good, because, like, you've got these baby faces, like, so, and yet they're not going to, like, turn up to fight, or are they going to vacate the belts? That's not a very big babyface thing to do, really. Like, and that's happened before. And again, it's the state of that division that I would consider to worry about, because it's like, if you say, hey, let's look at this division and say who can beat this team, well, there hardly isn't anyone, because they've beaten basically everyone. So it's very much like, well, yeah, how are you going to actually do that? Like, and if you're going to do that, it's like, well, how are you going to, like, if you were to say the Nemeth somehow do it, well, the Hardys just beat them, like, before as well. So you could say, oh, it's like 1-1 or whatever. You could keep that feud kind of going, but then you've just had them lose to Cardona and the Hometown Man. And maybe you could have them beat Hometown Man and Matt Cardona, but still you've kind of put that chink in the armor with like that sort of thing, instead of like building them up even further. Like, you're trying to say, oh, they can't get the job done, sort of thing. So that's what I mean. I just keep questioning so many of the decisions here and there sometimes. Like, you can always question a decision on something. But so it is like, oh, well, let's see how they play it through. But the thing is, you've got to be, like, it does seem a lot of the time like they're beholden to, or they're, like, stroking somebody's ego here in some ways, because it's very much, to me, like, this is a nostalgia act that, somebody needs to beat, and you need to build a team to beat them. That's what you need to do. And you were kind of doing that with the Nemeths. Then you kind of went, nah, well, we need to put the belts back on them, and all of this shenanigans and whatnot. And that's fine if you're saying, oh, yes, we're going to build them back up, or we're going to build another team back up, or what have you. Or if you say, hey, we're going to turn somebody or one of these teams heel or something. And I don't know why they turned Sinner and Saint babyface in some ways, because it's like, well, like, you could have just had them be a bit more neutral or what have you. I don't know. But then again, it's tough because, like I said before, it's like, you have to build these young kids, and if somebody like Eric Young takes the pin off of Judas Icarus, it's like, well, yeah, that's cool and all, but realistically, what are they? They're a tag team. They're not. It's, yes, you might try to set one or the other of them up to be more of a single success, but you have to sort of, contain them as a team. They have to be a team until they're not a team, type thing. Until somebody does, or until the crowd decides somebody's breaking out, or until somebody is breaking out. It's like, you've got to treat them like a team, like a unit, and you don't have enough teams, especially heel teams. Like, yes, you've got the Good Hands, but they haven't been in the tag teams, like, scene, like, properly for a while. Maybe you could build, like, you're kind of building them off of this Bound for Glory thing. So you could see something there, but again, I feel like, you're going to have to do it on TV, or you're going to have to do it at the very next pay-per-view, because it's like, when are the Hardys actually leaving? We don't know. Or when is their contracts up? We don't. I think it's at Bound for Glory, because there's a lot of contracts up at Bound for Glory. And that's really going to shake up the locker room. There's something else that I do want to talk about, but we've kind of talked about it a lot. But I do want to make a separate video about it, so I will make that. But that is a small update, and it's just some of my, like same sort of thoughts mostly on it. But some additional thoughts as well, I guess, as well, with the Hardys winning the NXT titles. I think, like, my reception to it, it is kind of cool in some ways, and like, again, it's the first time a TNA contracted wrestler has won a WWE title, so it's like, that is kind of cool in some ways, but, like, I don't know whether I think that this is the right choice, but it's, like, hard to sort of, I don't know, sort of think like, if you were to put the title on Mustafa Ali, then he's in that match with Moose and Order 4 and whatnot, so you're not going to defend the North American NXT title or whatever in TNA at that pay-per-view, which is only like 3 or 4 days away or whatever. But then you're not going to defend it again, probably either until NXT calls you up again, or until, hey, the next TNA pay-per-view. So I and there's, like, I said this before with the whole thing about, them going over there to challenge. Like I said before, there's not that much story actually, like, behind it. There wasn't that many interviews or whatnot of the Hardys saying, oh yeah, we're back, and like they did before, like when they were facing Frazier and Axiom. But there wasn't that much, like, in depth, this is why we need to win these belts, or this is what it means to us, or whatever. It was implied in saying this is the only title that they haven't ever really won in WWE or whatever. So, and the fans kind of, like, really pitched that a lot more than what WWE kind of did. So, I don't know whether I can give WWE much credit for the fact that the fans did most of the work in the storytelling. So, but yeah, I don't know, like, and again, like, I didn't even know, like, I wasn't really going to comment on it, but now I'm super curious, so I'm going to look it up, because I don't know how long Dark State were champions for. It wasn't very long, like I said. Let's see. Oops. So, they won them in August. So they've had them for, like, August, September, and into October. So maybe a month and a bit. Close to 2 months, maybe. At the most. Cool, great. I don't know, dude. Come on, like, and I'm not even going to go through every single tag team, but let's say for this calendar year, okay. The year starts off in February. Okay, cool, great. So that was the first people to win the titles that year, and the titles had been won last year in November. So November, December, January, February, like 3 months. So then the next title changes in April, March, February, March, April. So like 2 months. Then the next title change is in August. So April, March, April, May, June, July, August. So like 4 months there. And then August to September, that's like 1 month. Actually, I've gone back 2 years, actually. Whoops. So yeah, September 1st, September was like the last one, which was Axiom and Fraser. So September to April, September, October, November, December, January, February, March, April. So that's like 7 months. So then April to August, and then to now. So yeah. So that's like I think they were like one of the longest reigning champions in ages. Right? Absolutely ages. And then it's like couple weeks, couple months, couple weeks, whatever. But yeah. So that's what I mean. Like, I don't even have to say it, do I? So, and yet the TNA tag titles have been on the Hardys since like July. So yeah. But anyway, it is what it is, and you know, I hope for the best, and like that's what I mean. Like, I hope that they do pull their figure out, and they figure out, like, again, if you're gonna have somebody beat the Hardys from TNA while they're in WWE, like, to me that doesn't really compute too well, because especially if it's heels, which I'm assuming it would be, why would you cheer? Or why would people cheer? Why, if you had the Hardys in TNA and they got beat, then it's like, again, well, you know, would you cheer? Like, no, obviously not. So taking those belts off them is a difficult proposition if they're in a more difficult proposition if they're in WWE, because the idea would be, hey, they've got our titles or whatever. That you could say, oh well, they're just representing us in WWE, sort of thing, you know. But still, it's like a really, like, it's always difficult to put the titles onto somebody else, but like heels. But you've got to do it, you know. So, but yeah, no, I don't know what you can do with that. You've got to do something with that. So eventually it'll happen, I think, at some point where they have to, like, I don't want them to vacate it. That's the thing. Like, that's my be all and end all of, like, these titles need to be won back by somebody, or in some ways, or one off them in some way. Because if they're not one off of them in some way, in some form, in some fashion, in some regard, then it's very much like, well, what are you going to do now? That, you know, you've got your TNA tag titles in WWE. I mean, again, you've got the same issue in some ways with all these other titles that you've got in WWE, but at least, like, you've got that idea of saying, well, you know, we have some sort of an agreement, and obviously the titles are coming back, you know, so, you know. But yeah, no, I don't know. Anyway, guys, that's pretty much it. I hope you guys have enjoyed this one, and I hope you will join me again in another one.